Okay, here we go. Ah, getting back into streaming. It's been a while since I've streamed anything, and this is just kind of like a little test stream. Going to go through some art stuff, concept art, old concept art. I'm going to start developing a new enemy or two, and then we'll, if we have time, dig into Game Engine a little bit, implementation stuff. But as it is right now, let's see. So, if you're not familiar with Butcher and the Beast, this is kind of the final concept art for what I wanted the game to look like. But this, getting to this point, and this is much more really full and almost cluttered than the game ends up being. In fact, I'll pull up a copy of the game so you can see the final version. But this concept here is when I finally felt like, okay, I have a real kind of cohesive style here. And I took this and I started building it into the game. So, Godot, we're just going to go to the first level here. We're going to start it up. Get dropped in the wrong place a little bit. Ignore the marshmallow, and you can see the game kind of final-ish art in the game. Just a couple thoughts about the art, I guess. How I arrived here. First, I really wanted to be able to draw. I didn't actually generate any of this except using my own hand. But I wanted to create a lot of art fairly quickly, but I wanted it all to tie together and look nice. So I went with kind of this flat, really a little bit rough, messy pixel art style, which I'm trying to come up with a name for this, because you have different styles of pixel art, whether it be retro pixel art, different consoles, or like high bit pixel art. And this is something different and new, which is kind of much more expressive, flowing pixel art, which breaks a lot of the rules of pixel art. So I wanted to be able to create this quickly and expressively using my pen tablet. And I also wanted to incorporate, you can see some of these shapes up in the trees are, I use a specific tool in Aseprite called, actually don't know what it's called. What's it called? Contour tool. Contour tool lets you draw a line, and then let me just create a new layer and I'll demonstrate it if you've never seen it before. So you draw a line, and then it kind of connects the two ends of your line with a straight line. That's all it does. And I wanted to use this tool for a couple reasons. First, it's quite rapid. You can kind of fill in a space quite quickly with expressive lines, and the fill kind of takes care of itself. And also, let's see. No one's watching right now. But if you are watching, if you start watching, and if you can't hear me, let me know. I really should check if people can hear me. I am an amateur. I apologize. But this is a test stream. this is not an official devlog, so just relax. Relax. So using the contour tool, I kind of create all of these messy, expressive shapes, and some of them will have kind of those straight lines where I kind of scribbled and let go, and then the straight line completes the shape right there. And this is actually, a feature, not a bug, because in Chop, I'm still calling it Chop, that's the code name, in Butcher and the Beast, everything possible to make about chopping. So, for example, all your attacks are chops. When you come up to a question mark block, you don't hit it with your head a la Mario. You have to chop it. If you want food from a bleeding enemy, chop, big ol' chop. Do you want to destroy blocks? Chop. Everything's chopping. Everything possible needs to be a chop. And so the art, also I want to evoke that. So I want to be able to have kind of like, okay, not exactly like cut paper, but kind of that same unnatural angles and like sliced up appearance, just in places. I really quite like that. It adds kind of a nice structure, energy to the more free-flowing pixel. And obviously it's really only in this game that I would actually seek after those straight lines, because they are a little more out of place, artificial, but I like them within the context of this game. So that's some of my thinking about the art in the game as it is. And then let's go back to our concept art. Another couple details about this, of course, is we have dark foreground, and then it gradually gets lighter as it goes back, and also we have each layer of the world not only getting lighter, but also tilting towards the color, the sky color, right? So this gives us nice atmospheric depth, because that is indeed how perspective works, how depth works when you're looking at a real landscape, is everything is tinting more towards the sky color and the sky tone. So on a bright sunny day with a bright blue sky, everything's going to be getting kind of lighter and bluer as it goes back in space, and just slightly bluer. So since we have kind of this sandy yellow sky, we're starting with kind of a blue-black, and each step backwards we kind of are shading the colors more and more towards yellow. However, I also wanted to share this. Oh, you can also see all the layers, which is fun. And a lot of these actually end up being, what is that? Oh, that was the original screenshot that I was going to paint over, basically. So all the fun layers. And this guy's changed quite a bit, but overall, this is pretty much how the game looks. But I also have our earlier concept art, where I kind of had some of the colors, but I was experimenting, and as you will see, a lot of experiments don't turn out. So here we go. Check that out. You can definitely see the sword and sorcery influence here. It's a gorgeous game, and so I was kind of starting to riff off of that and experimenting, playing. And often when you're experimenting and playing, it doesn't work out, and you sit back and you look at it and you go, this is a mess. This is ridiculous. What was I thinking? But that's okay. That's really okay, because when you're creating art for a game, ooh, that's cool. When you're working on concept stuff, oh, that's so cool looking. You have to turn off the inner critic for a while. You have to say, you know what, critic can go sit down, and I am just going to play, experiment, see what's out there. Because sometimes the stupidest, like, line of reasoning ends up leading to a breakthrough. So you kind of have to have that uncritical, just playful attitude if you want to develop something new. And sometimes you come up with absolute garbage like this. And that's fine. I'm going to save that though. I like that orange. And that was a step on the way to the stuff. Yeah. So if you're watching this and you have any ideas for what I could call this kind of pixel art, I have one possibility which is FreeBit. FreeBit maybe. Here's some kind of examples of a bunch of different FreeBit, if I call it that, FreeBit foliage. And it's really characterized by that kind of expressive, flowing, freely drawn pixels without a lot of regard for a lot of the pixel art rules. You know, capitalized pixel art rules. So giving up some of the clarity and some of the precision and tight control for expression and kind of energetic shapes. So if you like this, I'm going to be doing quite a lot more, again, for lack of a better term, FreeBit pixel art that I'm going to be just giving away, because I'd like to really establish a new acceptable form of pixel art, I guess. And let's look at another. Here's a bunch of FreeBit kind of characters. And some of them are more kind of highly detailed, might look a little bit more controlled and precise. But they're all drawn with the same process and really expressive, flowing shapes, outlines is really the focus, if that makes sense. So Butcher and the Beast will be really the first FreeBit pixel art game, or whatever I end up calling it. All right. So now let's get into some concepting, shall we? Okay. So I can't show you this right now because I don't have a camera hooked up to my computer or anything, but I'm pulling out notebooks. I have a great backlog of little creatures and doodles and such. I keep in a big stack of notebooks. So that's usually where I start. Rather than when I'm working in the computer, I tend to... Actually, you know what? Let's just open that FreeBit stuff. And we need a grid. So when I'm working in the computer, I found it works generally better. I tend to be able to create a lot more consistent work if I do some of the thinking ahead. So drawing, doodling, playing in a notebook before I get to the point where I'm like trying to be goal oriented and finish something. So the little guy I kind of want to work on today is based on a Asian horned frog, which has kind of these spiky little nodules above his eyes. I kind of exaggerated them. I might be able to actually find you a picture. I mean, of course I can, but Megafreeze, Montana. See if I can find a picture. There we are. There's that fella. Okay. There he is. Whoa! So here's the kind of spiky eyebrows, which is kind of great. So, this little fella, I doodled a concept based on him, which is kind of a plant, thorny plant toad. So we'll start working on just a silhouette of him. And I will experiment with a silhouette until I have one that I like. Generally takes a few tries. I don't think those arms are quite right. We're going to have these kind of toad-like, bent at the elbows kind of things. And really what I'm looking for in a silhouette, it's gonna be tricky, is readability, so you can kind of tell what's going on, and clarity, so that if all of your enemies, say, are kind of generally the same shape, then they're much kind of more cognitively difficult to parse. when you're playing the game, it's much easier to read what's going on, and it's much easier to make distinctive enemies if they have unique silhouettes. So we're going to work on that. I don't really like this at all. So let's think about this guy. So I was thinking he's kind of embedded in moss. He's kind of like a pseudobulb that kind of sticks out of a bunch of plants. So what if we did kind of a push? And then he kind of emerges from the bush. This is also a hallmark of FreeBit, as it were. It's kind of the undo, redo, well, not redo, but undo, draw until you have the shape you're looking for. Could kind of have longer legs, but then they're gonna look spindly. Maybe like kind of knobbly knees. So one leg like that, he's kind of sideways. Yeah, it's just going to be a difficult thing to get two legs in there, isn't it? It has some like curling leaves coming up like this. I'd like to mirror the horns on his head with the leaves, so we have repeating shapes. Always nice to have, and it also makes him look more dangerous, because pointy shapes, humans don't like pointy shapes, and so, pointy shapes. I don't like how it's crushed off to one side, but I also don't want to make him like super wide, so I'm going to try making the bush a little smaller. Maybe making the whole fella a little smaller. Emphasizes. I don't know, this is weird. I don't think that's going to work really. Like him coming out of the bush is just odd. Don't like it. So then what? Do we make him just like a toad hopping around on the ground? What else could we do? Looks good on the page, but not on the side. Well, okay, so if we take the toad shape, like this, like a sunflower seed, oops, or a Brazil nut on its side, we have the toad shape, and he has his, that's too far, his little knees, backwards knees, sticking out like that. Those legs. Yeah. Now if we just turn that into a shrubbery. That's these little spiky eyebrows. Spiky chin. And let's just go ahead and make his little foot pointy as well. That's getting there. It's actually getting there. A little close to the edge, so we're going to go ahead and smoosh this down more into an almond shape. And pointy legs. Foot. Spiky leaves. Pointy eyebrows, and a chin. I don't like the chin being totally square. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so now if we look at him, that's a much more attractive, balanced silhouette than any of the other monstrosities. Center it a little bit. That's nice. So you can see how we get there. Starting out really looking like a Kermit having a rough day, and then tightening it up into something that looks pretty good. So now we're going to honestly just nuke those ones. But you on the live stream or watching the replay later will know my secret shame. Haha. Right, then we start experimenting with what he could look like. Now, all these guys have a lovely variety of colors because we are using a palette. What's the palette even called? It is called, the current one we're using is called Rosie 42 by Pine Tree Pizza. Rosie 42, very nice, very pretty, bright, vibrant, but that is not going to be what we're using. And after Rosie 42, frankly, the palette I'm going to load is going to be sad. Boom. Oh man, this is why context matters so much with color. Look at that pathetic palette. Compared to all the bright colors just up there, it is so sad. It's basically like one color, and they're all shades of vomit. But this is why it's important to keep things in context. Like if I was using these colors on the same canvas as all of these bright, beautiful, bubblegummy, delicious colors, honestly, it would just be something that would be so sad. It would be impossible to really get a feel for how the colors will feel in-game, because they're just drowned out, demolished by all these bright pops of saturated color. So we are not going to do that. We are actually going to go into our city concept here. And we are going to paste our frog in context. And already, and this is hilarious, so we're going to get out of here. So we have this tone in here, which is just kind of black, right? Totally just like a nice black tone, right? Right? But we get out of the brightly colored nonsense factory, and just pasting it in the concept here, we can already see this is like, this isn't black. This is kind of like a saturated purple black. So exciting. Not good. So we're going to start by, boom, making it there. Proper in-world black. Then we are going to have some fun. I'm going to turn on our contour tool. We're going to set it to lock alpha, which means we will only be, whatever we draw, it will only, unless I switch layers, it will keep the maintain the transparency so that we can't draw outside the toad's silhouette. So we can experiment without messing up the good silhouette. All right, now we have to remember this toad is in the foreground, and a lot of objects in the foreground are very dark, but let's go ahead and open a secret helpful thing here, which is, wrong one, which is the enemy consistency comparison. So I got these fellas here. And these fellas are here to help me. Because we really want all the enemies to kind of look, cohesive. So, where are you? we're going to copy that, paste it in here. Except I pasted it over the layer of the frog. I'm accidentally copying. I apologize, this is painful. Painful, painful, painful. I know it's painful to watch. It's also painful to do. Contiguous. Okay. So we got our little guys here. By hook or by crook. Let's just drag them around here and they can be next to the toad. Now the first thing, oops, what happened to our concrete golem? That's okay, we don't need him. We don't need you. If you're gonna lose half your pixels. No thank you. So, first thing we need to look at here is this frog is big. The context of the game, the frog is big. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Is it a bad thing at all? So how do we want this frog to behave? I'm thinking, so he's going to be sitting in a thorny bush. So he's going to probably just be non-ambulatory. So he's just gonna be stationary. That's the word I'm looking for. Stationary frog sitting there, spitting out his tongue. Because that's what frogs do. That is how frogs do. So I think him being bigger is totally cool. We want him to be kind of threatening. We have all these nice sharp spiky shapes up top to show that he's dangerous to land on, which is always nice if you can telegraph why something is dangerous or where it's dangerous. Always helpful to the player if it makes intuitive sense. Pull up our contour tool. Start just working on colors. And now we see why it's so important to create things in context. Okay, this is really important. This is a lesson that took me a long time to learn. Because these colors are looking a lot more alive. Because with colors, context is everything, right? Like any color can be beautiful or horrific depending on the context. And this fella is looking kind of bright and yellowish, kind of poison froggy here, you know. I don't want to use that green ever. Couple of eyes, one eye, mouth. I'd really like to have him kind of a little more hunkered over. There, like that. And we have that nice little kind of area on the back that frogs have, where their kind of spine transitions to their hips, I think. But in context, he looks kind of like this nice bright yellow fella. But then if we go back to those, again, the obnoxiously brightly colored free bit stuff, look how flat-ended he looks. Like I would never be happy with that. See? See, look at this. Pathetic color scheme. Ah! Why? See? Ah! It's so drab. So awful. This is why context matters. Delete. In the context of the game, he's looking okay. I think I might take, so one problem we're having here is how do we make him appear that he's in foliage without it kind of blending in too much? My first thought is make it black, because the super foreground, like the foreground stuff, tends to be black, but we also have a problem, which is doesn't always read as like a character. And if I make it lighter, I mean, I don't hate that. But we do have maybe some background issues then. Because it works in front of this background. But then if we were to turn off, you know, some of the darker backgrounds, it's getting pretty low contrast. But, you know, I think that's acceptable. I think that's acceptable, especially if we add some darker colors in there judiciously to help it stand out. We're still on alpha, direct alpha, lock alpha. This always looks like a D to me, DA. I'm not even sure how that's supposed to be anything but a DA. It's not an L. It's just an A. If you're out there, Sprite developers, change it to LA. Come on. What's wrong with you? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna pay attention to light, although we're pretty flat. Generally speaking, we try to keep to pretty flat colors, but we'd like to get a little bit of shadow in there. And so here's the problem. We have kind of flat foliage, but our characters are really shaded and lit. So why is that a problem? It's a problem because this is both a character and foliage. So do we want to push the foliage more to look like it's in-game foliage, or like it's we can't forget the little circle thing, or like it is part of the character? I think the answer is more like it's part of the character, but we can experiment with that. Okay, important character design rule here. And a lot of times you'll do this just intuitively. But put the area of highest contrast where you want the player to look. So when you're looking at the enemy, whatever it is, wherever you want the player to look, I mean, a nice little specular highlight can do it. Because if you want to get the full effect, I would close your eyes right now. I'll add an area of super high contrast elsewhere on the character. Then you can open your eyes in a minute and see the difference. So go ahead and close your eyes. I promise it will be interesting. I'm going to mess up and have to undo a bunch of stuff. Of course, keep your eyes closed. Please, just listen to the sound of my voice. Okay. Go ahead and open your eyes. I added this horrific black and white leg, and it's clearly the like the area of highest contrast between colors, and it's really jarring. Obviously, even more so if you kind of like got rid of his eye. Then like, what is this? I can't even recognize it for, this thing right here seems to be, I don't know, like polka dot hands sticking out of the ground. It doesn't seem to have any relation to anything else. And this is hardly even a face anymore. So, when designing characters, definitely try to keep highest contrast, because as people, as humans, we gravitate towards things that are high contrast, high saturation. Another character design tip. You'll notice my character here, within the context of the game, the highest contrast character in the game is our main character. So you're drawn to look at him first. And the highest contrast point on the character is his face, where we have black and white, right? Like serious contrast and detail. Because we have kind of a little mustache and the eyes, there's a lot of detail there. So if I can get a new layer in there. Excuse me. So in screenshots, when people are playing the game, whatever it is, we're still in lock alpha, their attention is going to be drawn towards there. Right towards where they need to be looking, the player. So that's contrast, but also the player has the highest saturation. So we have this bright orange apron. And that color, except for like blood and things, is really hardly anywhere else in the game. If we want something more bright, it's still going to be a little more muted than this apron. Again, that is we look towards high contrast as well. So I'd like to draw people's eyes straight to the player. High contrast, high saturation character. Dig it? Okay. These are important things to know for sure. Because a lot of what makes games look amateurish is not abiding by a lot of these really simple rules, right? High contrast. I need my pencil. Highest contrast on the eyes, right? Up here. Although he's changed his look a little bit. But still, highest contrast in his eyes, highest contrast in the eye. On this pumpkin guy, he doesn't have the highlight because he's supposed to have, holes for a face. But still the highest contrast there. Highest contrast on the frog. I think the frog is looking a little puffy and ungainly. I think I'm gonna have to slim him down a little bit. Make him look a little more mean, Remove superfluous pixels. That's looking a little better. Okay. His leg also looks like it's a Tinker toy or something. So I'll need to work on getting that to be distinctive and organic. And somehow we lost lock alpha again. So do we want to just have it blend into his body like this? Or do we want it to be distinct color? Or do we just it's the problem that it's kind of overlapping his body like that. I think that was the problem. Just need a little more shadow. That's a little better. Now we could also take this, honestly it could be less of an angle. And then things get lighter as they go back. Is that gonna be, no. That's not right, is it? Not at all. We actually want that to be the back leg, and this to be the front leg, maybe? That's way too dark currently, unless we add some more. And that becomes unreadable. Okay. Well, we'll leave him one-legged for now. He also needs kind of a darker mouth, just so you can read his face. Also, something, notice that I'm trying to zoom out a lot, because you can get into a bad habit as a artist of staying zoomed in as close as possible all the time and getting lost in the details. And so it's important to be able to like look at the big picture, also, you know, do this, flip it around, because you can get it really awkwardly shaped facing one direction and it looks fine, but then when you flip it you all of a sudden see the problems in a new light. Also want some shadow kind of down here, and there. Do we want kind of a leg sticking out of the bush? I don't think so, because that's just going to be like, what is that? Who knows? I think we'll leave him simple, sticking out of the bush like this. I think we also probably want to experiment with some more spiky shapes again. And I do tend to try to flag danger with a little bit orange, because again, that's like color cue is not looking good in this context currently. But if we do some, I don't think so. I'll have to work on that and see if I can get it kind of spiky looking, dangerous looking, like he's a real, you know, nasty fellow who likes to just camp out in, you know, spiky bushes. Yeah. And dares you to make something of it. Come on. But I'm not really coming up with a good way of doing that right now. I'm a little stumped. So I think I've been looking at this frog for enough time now. So I need to take a break from that. I'm just going to click save. He's going to be there, and when I come back next time to do some concept work, I will see everything that's wrong with him, which is sure to be a fair bit. His eyebrow's weird shaped now. But yeah, also taking a break from what you're working on. Give your brain a rest, give your eyes a rest. Can help you see things that you can't see when you've been working on it for 49 minutes. Man, if you've watched this whole thing, bless you. Man, oh man. We'll also try to put the frog in the game, just like drag a sprite in, eventually, because it's quite important to see him within the context of the game, because sometimes that will lead some important insights for things that I've done wrong, how he should look. Yeah, I know, you want me to feed him, right? You want to see him eat all these delicious melon with eyes. Well, you've watched this long, I guess we can feed him. Yum, yum, yum. Oh, you should do the sound effects too. I don't have the sound effects from the desktop being served, but these are wicked. But I suppose if you watch this and you want to try playtesting for me, found some cash. If you want to try playtesting for me, then you'll get to hear all of the juicy sounds when you playtest. And also, playtesters are some of my favorite people on the planet, so you can look forward to that. So anyway, as is to be expected, did not get as far today as I thought I might. Optimism strikes again, but I think we'll wrap up here. I really hope the audio is coming through. If it's not, then this has been a long, silent, unexciting video. But let me know what you think. Let me know what you would like to hear in future live streams, future kind of devlogs and such. And I'll see you on the other side.